All right, Jemosai, good morning, or good tavach. Hopefully everyone had a beautiful and uplifting and meaningful Shabbos, and it is a great zechus. First of all, tremendous yashikoach to all those who participated, able to attend the beautiful Shiurim last night. It's always such an uplifting aliyah and such an uplifting opportunity, Baruch Hashem, to come together and to celebrate our accomplishments. You know, we plug away every single day, and Baruch Hashem, just the opportunity to come together as a chevra, to be able to celebrate our beautiful spiritual accomplishments is always a tremendous zechus. He left already, but I meant to thank one person I didn't thank, two people I didn't thank yesterday, who were Azriel Miller and Saeed Hagen, who really worked very hard behind the scenes. You're not going to believe this. There's actually a WhatsApp group for Shiurim planning. And no, you cannot get on it. You cannot get on it. No matter how much you try. Jeremy might get on it. I might just add Jeremy just for the fun of it. But Baruch Hashem, like the Chavra really worked very hard with all the details and all the back and forth. So tremendous, thank you, tremendous. With that, let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors, Baruch Hashem, for the shir this morning, to thank all of our TALMUD TORAH sponsors, Josh and Becca Friedman, for dedicating all the Shiurim and Drushos this month in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Josh's father, Yisroel Yehuda ben HaRav Chaim Rephael, and for aliyah for the Neshamas of all of those killed al Kiddush Hashem on Shmini Atzeres in Eretz Yisrael, and of course in the zechus of all of our hostages, in the zechus of all of our precious soldiers, and in the zechus of a refuah sheleima for all those who were injured in the attacks. To thank Sammy and Malka Esterson for dedicating all the Shiurim and Drushos this month in memory of their parents, Hinda bas Henoch Ephraim, Yitzchak Leib ben Aaron HaKohen, Sarah Rachel bas Baruch Avram Zichrono Livracha. The Pepper family in memory of their brother and uncle Yosef Pepper, Yosef David ben Yaakov Zichrono Livracha, and our week of learning sponsors, Dr. Ed and Mrs. Faith Wolf, in honor of the wedding today, B'Shah Tova Matzlachas, of their dear son Gideon to Mali Himorich, Emirat Hashem, Chas and Gala, Shebizocha to stand under the chuppah, B'Shah Tova U'Metzlachas, and Emirat Hashem build a bayis Am Yisroel al Me'avesim Shanim Tovos. And a happy birthday to Yoni Frager. He just walked up. He just walked up, so I just saw it. Emirat Hashem al Me'avesim Shanim Tovos. I wasn't going to do it. But you literally just walked up here. I was saying, of course, we dedicate the entire Maseches Baba Kama. And truth is a tremendous yashikoach to Rabbi Yoni and to Adam David, who spoke so beautifully last night at our Shiurim, really like Devarim HaYotzim Min HaLev, incredibly special, and thank you. And of course, we devote all of Maseches Baba Kama Le'ilui Nishmas Master Sergeant Eliyahu Michal Harush, one of the first dedicated policemen who was murdered al Kiddush Hashem at the firefight in this police station at Sderot. That al Kiddush Hashem protecting so many. We hope that at the merit of our TALMUD TORAH, his Neshama will have an aliyah and his family in Neshama. With that, let us begin. We actually have an incredible daf ahead of us today, and get ready for this, even a little bit of agarata. All right? I feel like we've earned it. I really feel like we've earned it in Bava Kama, Baruch Hashem. So again, I want to manage expectations. It's not a lot of agarata. It's not like wild agarata, but it's some nice, beautiful agarata. So we'll say, so today's daf is 17. Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. We are picking up in Yirtzeh Hashem on Test Zayin Amud Beis 16b at the two dots. We are picking up actually 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 lines up from the bottom on Tez Zayin Amud Beis. So Gemara says as follows: Kikaru Shucha Lachdeni. So Gemara quotes the pasuk from Yirmiyahu Hanavi. Kikaru Shucha Lachdeni Upachim Tamnu L'Raglai. So literally translated, Yirmiyahu Hanavi says they dug a pit in order to ensnare me. Upachim. Pachim, literally, again, traps they made for my feet. Rabbi Lazar Omer, Rabbi saying, now this is Yirmiyahu Hanavi. Now understand, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, like most great people are usually only recognized as great people when? Right? When they die. Right? Especially Jewish leaders. Jewish leaders normally only really achieve their full level of acclaim once they're dead. Often, the greater they are when they're alive, the more difficult their lives are. No greater example of this than Moshe Rabbeinu, who when he was alive just faced constant difficulty and constant strife. Yirmiyahu Hanavi was no different. Now Yirmiyahu Hanavi encountered a lot of difficulty for a different reason. Remember, Yirmiyahu was the prophet of destruction. So because he was the prophet of destruction, his message, as one could imagine, was unpopular, right? Whenever Yirmiyahu Navi would talk about the end, Yerushalayim is going to be destroyed because of the sins of the people, it wasn't exactly greeted with incredible enthusiasm. And I also remember again, it was such a profound memory. What is Yirmiyahu Navi is trying to deliver the message of destruction in order to stave off destruction. In other words, he's delivering this message so that people will listen, do tshuva, and turn things around. Instead of, I'll say, what happens? This happens all the time. Instead of people internalizing the message, what do? They shoot the messenger, or they get angry at the messenger. So Yirmiyahu Hanavi, therefore, so here the pasuk is describing the difficulties that Yirmiyahu Hanavi had with the people. So listen to this. Rabbi Elazar Amar, Shechashdu Mizona. Ultimately, again, they accused Yirmiyahu Hanavi ultimately again of engaging in immorality with a zona. They went ahead and they suspected him that he was committing adultery. Now, what's the pshat with this? What's the pshat? So interestingly enough, again, we find this also by Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu had these same accusations leveled against him. Now, by Moshe Rabbeinu, if you remember, why was that? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't live with his wife. Because since Moshe Rabbeinu had to be in a constant state of preparedness for communication with the Shekhinah, he couldn't be in a state of tumah. Because he couldn't be in a state of tumah, he wasn't even able to go ahead and carry on just like a normal married life, like a normal intimate life. You had to be separate. So here's what's incredible. So people said, impossible that a man could live in that way. So it must be that Moshe Rabbeinu's got something else going on the side, right? It must be that he's engaging in some type of immoral behavior, but he's maintaining his elevated status. So they made the same accusations about Yirmiyahu Hanavi. Now, I'm saying it's incredible, but it tells you something about fascinating about human nature. Human nature is that when we see someone on a pedestal, right, someone who is great, so you have two choices. What are the choices? Either build yourself up to try to get to that heightened level as well, or, right, knock them down. Knock them down. And it's incredible how often human nature chooses to knock people down. It's so much easier to go ahead and bring someone off their pedestal. So that way, again, I'm on the same level than it is to go ahead and build myself up. Now, obviously, again, we're not asked to be on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's not what asked of us. But it's just fascinating how you wonder to yourself, how could anyone ever say that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Yirmiyahu Hanavi has a zona? Out of all the things you want to say, has a zona, is committing adultery? But again, it's because when you see great people, I will say, great people a lot of times like awaken something very uncomfortable inside of us, which is, if that person could be great, then what? So can I. But I'm not. So how do I reconcile, I will say, it's incredible Yisod. In general, in life, how do I reconcile the person I can become with the person I am? So you have one of two ways to do that. Either push yourself to become more, or just knock down the guy that looks greater, thereby taking the pressure off myself. Such an incredible Yisod. So Gemara says this also. So according to the opinion, it says that they suspected him of having a zona. Remember again, zona immorality is also called the pit. But the one who says ultimately again that they suspect him of adultery, my shucha, why does it say that they dug for me a pit? To which the words again, engaging with a married woman is still an act of znus. And we'll say, so it's interesting, by the way, that immorality is called a pit. Immorality is called a pit. And we'll say, why? It's interesting, right? Chil Shabbos is not called a pit, right? Violating kashrus is not called a pit. Why is immorality called? We know it. Because once a person gets stuck in a web of immorality, whatever that immorality may be, whether it's actional immorality, whether it's the things that we look at that we shouldn't be looking at, we'll say, what happens? It's a pit. It's a pit. And the more I engage in it, the deeper the pit becomes, and the deeper the pit becomes, the more difficult it is to climb out. It's an incredible, incredible thing. So let's listen to this. According to the opinion that says that they suspected Yirmiyahu Hanavi of engaging in in adultery, that's why the pasuk says, "V'ata Hashem yadata es kol atzasam alai lamos." Yirmiyahu Hanavi says, "Kodesh Baruch Hu, you know all the things they're saying. They're trying to put me to death. Why? Because immorality is a transgression which carries a death penalty. But the one who says ultimately again that They suspected him of engaging with the Zona, my lomos. Well, his relations with the Zona is bad, but it doesn't carry with it a death penalty. To which the Gemara says, listen to this. Shishlichu lebartit. I will say this is incredible. They threw Yirmiyahu into a tar pit. Right? By the way, it's not metaphorical. It's not metaphorical. They literally just threw him into a pit. That's how much they abused and that's how much they mistreated the prophet Yirmiyahu. Darash Rava, my dichsiv, Yum uchsham lefanecha be'esapecha. Shabbos says, so now Yirmiyahu HaNavi does something amazing. Yirmiyahu says, Yum uchsham lefanecha be'esapcha asabam. Yirmiyahu HaNavi literally says, Baruch Hu, now, as a result of being mistreated, ultimately by Klal Yisrael, so Yirmiyahu HaNavi davens to Hashem that Klal Yisrael should stumble over obstacles. Now, what obstacle is he davening for? So the Gemara says, so Amar Yirmiyahu v'nei Baruch Hu, Ribono Shalom, Afilu b'shah she'osin staka, hechshilim b'nei Adam she'enan mehuganim, kedei shelo yikablu alein schar. So Yirmiyahu HaNavi becomes so upset at Klal Yisrael that he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, place a stumbling block, that even when they try to do something good, for example, tzedakah, make it be that they give their tzedakah to someone who doesn't really need it, and therefore, again, they don't really get the mitzvah of tzedakah. And I will say, where else do you see this concept of a leader becoming so upset with the flock that he davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu not to accept their service? Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach. Right? This is what happens. In other words, I will say, there is a level, as much as a leader is supposed to have boundless compassion, sometimes when the leader sees that the constituency or elements of it are acting in a way that is cancerous, like literally cancerous, to the rest of the klal, sometimes the leader has to take action to say, Kadosh Baruch Hu, these people need to be removed. They need to be removed. So here, Yirmiyahu HaNavi says, there's such deleterious behavior happening over here that Kadosh Baruch Hu, don't even accept their Ma'aseh tzedakah. How should you not accept their Ma'aseh tzedakah? Have it be that when they try to do tzedakah, they end up giving it to people who don't deserve it. Now, this happens to be a side discussion about what is the impact if you give tzedakah, and it turns out that Lamaisa, the person you gave tzedakah to, is a fraud. Unfortunately, these things happen. These things happen, right? I'm moved by a story, by a narrative. I give tzedakah, and then it turns out he was definitely in need. The person asking, what was he in need of? A vacation and a bank account in the Caymans, right? That's what he was in need of, right? So now I gave all this money, and what happened? So there's an interesting discussion in the poskim about whether or not one has fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah in that way. Certainly, one gets reward for the machshava, right? The machshava was good, but whether or not one gets reward for the mitzvah of tzedakah, when the tzedakah doesn't go exactly where it's supposed to, is interesting discussions. Here, Yirmiyahu HaNavi says, Kadosh Baruch Hu, make it be that even their mitzvah of tzedakah is void, that they end up giving tzedakah to the people who don't really need it. All right, incredible. So both say, so now the Gemara is off. So that's the end of Yirmiyahu HaNavi. The covered Asla B'Mosa. Both say, by the way, remind me, at the end of this year, if we have time, I ran out of time on Friday, I want to share with you something on the Kislev Gemara, on the dog Gemara. And it's not a rant. It's actually something interesting. It was because of the rant I didn't get to. On Friday, if we have time at the end, I just want to go back to that. Anyway, I'm not going to go back to it now because otherwise I'm going to run out of time here. So Gemara says, covered asal of amosa. So we'll say, now we're switching gears for a little bit. This Gemara now is talking about Chizkiyahu HaNavi. Chizkiyahu HaNavi. So we'll say, remember again, Chizkiyahu HaNavi was one of the most righteous kings, a great-great-grandson of David HaMelech. The Gemara talks about how Chizkiyahu HaNavi could have been Mashiach. He could have been the Mashiach. We actually will say, just by the way, if you want to know how Chizkiyahu could have been Mashiach, coming attractions, come to Am Yomi tomorrow night. Brachas Daf Yud Amud Aleph. We're actually doing the Gemara of Chizkiyahu HaNavi. Tomorrow night, Ma'ariv 8:50, Am Yomi at 9 o'clock. We're literally doing this Gemara. Even if you don't want to sign up for Am Yomi for the rest of your life, just come tomorrow night. It's Kedai. Anyway, the Gemara says as follows. So, I'm sorry? And there is seltzer. Right? And there is seltzer. Thanks to Shmuel Armin, multiple flavors and stuff you've never heard. Burnt orange, cranberry, yuzu. What was the yuzu one? Blood orange. What was yuzu? What was yuzu? Boysenberry. Oh, yuzu, Freusenberry. Whatever. It's very good. So let's say as follows. The Kavod Asla B'Mosa. So we'll say, so remembering when Chizkiyahu HaNavi died, they gave him great covet in his death. So the Gemara says, what does it mean? How did they give him great covet in his death? Melamed show shiva yeshiva al kivro. Rabbi said, listen to this. They made a yeshiva on his grave. That's how they gave kavod to Chizkiyahu Navi. They made a yeshiva on his grave. Rabbi said, I'll tell you something interesting. Generally, that sounds very strange, right? Because, actually, let's finish up. Pligi bar Rabbi Nasser Rabbi Rabbanon. Chad amar shlosha, top of Yuzayin. The chad amar shiva. Rabbi said, it's a machlokes, how long? Va'amri shloshim. How long was the yeshiva there on the grave of Chizkiyahu Navi? Some say for 3 days. Some say for 7 days, and some say for 30 days. They both say, what's fascinating about that? Generally, we have a concept that Kazav loig l'rash, which means that we do not perform mitzvos within proximity to a grave. In other words, right, if you have your tzitzis out, you have to put your tzitzis in if you're a Dalet Amis. We generally, again, you don't do a shear by a kever, right, within that. So it's interesting, by Chizkiyahu Navi, they put a yeshiva on his grave. What's the pshat? They will say, what's the concept of loig l'rash? Loig l'rash means that you don't want to go ahead and be insensitive to the mace. That here again, I will say, what's the scariest part of death? The scariest part of death is not the cessation of life. Why? We believe in Olam Haba. So if you believe in a world to come, which is, then this whole world is just a corridor to that world, I'm not scared of death. The tragedy of death is the inability to perform mitzvos. That when I am here, I could do anything. When I'm here, I could learn. I could do a mitzvah. I could do an act of chesed. And every day I could fill my life with these things. And then when you die, what happens? Like kiviyachol, like your assets are frozen. Whatever you've acquired over the course of your life, that's what you have. But you cannot acquire any more. So the notion of doing mitzvahs in the presence of a mace, is considered to be insensitive to the mace. Here, I can continue to do, and the mace can no longer continue to do. So what's the pshat that they put a yeshiva on the kever of Chizkiyahu Navi? See, I will say here's the difference. When a person lived a life of complete self-actualization, and they did everything they were supposed to do, there's no loig l'rash. Then there's no insensitivity. Chizkiyahu Navi, Chizkiyahu Melech, he did what he was supposed to do. He lived a good life. He was fully self-actualized. Because he was fully self-actualized, therefore, again, there's no insensitivity performing mitzvos by his kever. I will say, that's what we aim for. We want to live the kind of lives where after we leave this world, that anyone and everyone could do mitzvos in the presence of my kever, and it's not insensitive. Because I know I lived the life I needed to live. I did the things I needed to do. I left no stone unturned. I left no opportunity unactualized. I left no mitzvah unperformed. That was the life of Chizkiyahu Navi. Halavar was, if we could live that kind of life, then our descendants, our friends, our community will be able to do mitzvahs in the presence of our kever, and there'll be absolutely no insensitivity. Incredible. The kavod also, let's say second line from the top. Yuzayin with Aleph. The kavod also, they did kavod for him in his death. So the Gemara says, zechus melech Yehuda. This is Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehuda. Sheyatzel lefanav shloshim v'shisha elef chalutzei kasef the Rabbi Yehuda. We'll say 36,000 men with torn clothing. We'll say the lashon is literally bared shoulders. What that means is they tore their clothing, did kriya. 36,000 men went before the funeral bier of Chizkiyahu Melech, excuse me, with torn clothing as a sign of mourning for the king. So the Gemara says, but one second, the truth is there were 36,000 men with torn clothing who walked before the funeral bier of Achav. And Achav was a Rasha. Achav was a Rasha. So 36,000 men went with torn clothing before Achav. I don't know, Chizkiyahu deserves a little bit better than that. This is so beautiful. Wow. They will say, what did they do for Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehuda? They placed the Sefer Torah on his funeral bier, on the bed, on the stretcher, on the bed, carrying his body, and they made the announcement, Ki em zeh mashakasuv bazeh. This one performed everything that is written in this one. It will say, can you imagine that? Can you imagine living a life where as your body is being escorted out for burial, they place a Sefer Torah next to your body, and they make the announcement, this person, was mekayim everything written in this. Incredible. Incredible, I will say. But the Gemara said, 1 second, even today, we do that for certain great people. To which the Gemara says, no. Afuki mafkinan alochi hanuchi lo manchinan. No, sometimes we'll take out a Sefer Torah. Right? As a person is being escorted to burial, we'll take out a Sefer Torah and we'll say again, okay, this person went ahead and performed everything that's written in this. But Lamaisa, we don't actually go ahead and place the Sefer Torah on the actual funeral bier itself. Maybe sometimes you'll say we even place the Sefer Torah on the funeral bier. Kiem lo amrinan. So I will say, at most what we'll do is, maybe we'll place the Sefer Torah on the funeral bier, but we don't make the announcement that this one, i.e. the person who passed away, fulfilled everything that's written in this, i.e. the Sefer Torah. So that was unique to Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda. Number one, they took out the Sefer Torah. Number two, they placed it on the funeral bier next to him. Number three, they made the announcement that this one, i.e. Chizkiyahu, was Mekayim, everything written in the Sefer Torah. Incredible. Well, let's listen to this. Amar Rava Bar Chana. Hava azulna b'hadei Rabbi Yochanan. One time I was following Rabbi Yochanan, l'mishal shmaita, to discuss this particular situation. Ki hava ayala beis hakisei, and Rabbi Yochanan was going to the bathroom. Va'ava ba'ina minei milsa. I asked him a question. V'lo pashet lan, and he did not answer us. Ad demashi yadei umanach tefillin. So he went to the bathroom. He came out. He washed his hands. He put on his tefillin. And he made a bracha on them. And then he answered the question. So I will say, incredible, right? Incredible. First of all, again, there's a lot of lessons over here. First of all, lesson number one is let the rabbi go to the bathroom with us. Right? That's number one. If you see him going out, leave him alone. Leave him alone. Give the guy now I'm not to my back. Give the guy 2 minutes. Right? He's not paro, right? Everybody has to go to the bathroom, right? Give the guy 2 minutes. That's lesson number one. I will say, but on a different lesson, I will say how beautiful it is that, you see over here, an urgency, to learn Torah, right? They're following the Rebbe, right? The Rebbe's going to the bathroom. He's coming out. The Talmudim are just waiting there, right? It's just such a beautiful thing. And they were talking about this particular sugya. So I'll say, there's a lot of beauty in this also, how you see Rabbi Yochanan, comes, takes off his tefillin, goes into the bathroom, comes out, puts his tefillin back on. It's interesting, by the way, that he makes a bracha on his tefillin again. It's another discussion. Okay. V'hadra amralan. Right, so I said, first of all, take a quick look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, Ki hava ayla beis hakisei, kilomar, zimna chada, Ki hava ayla beis hakisei, amralan hachi kayim, amrinon limed, amralan hachi kayim amrinon, limed lo amrinon. V'limed ala amar l'chizkiya, va'iner lo mishum kvoda l'chizkiya, d'limed adam mekayim. So I say, okay, let's see something Gemara. So what happened? V'hada amralan, afilu kiyem amrinon, limed lo amrinon. So here, interestingly enough, what Rabbi Yochanan said was like this. Contemporarily, we'll even go ahead and we'll take out a Sefer Torah, place it on the funeral bier, and even go ahead and make the statement, this one, the person who passed away, fulfilled everything written in this one. But you know what was unique about Chizkiyahu? They said limed. He taught. This one taught everything that was written in this one. The Chizkiyahu didn't just learn it and didn't just fulfill it himself, but what? He taught it to others. I change the Gadol Talmud Torah Shalimun Mevi Lide Maisa. But we learned, Mar said that learning Torah is great because learning brings one to action. Lo kasha hala migmar hala agmure. So I will say this is incredible. So there are two different levels when it comes to Torah. There's learning of Torah, and then there's teaching of Torah. So Rabbi said the highest level of learning Torah personally is learning and then translating that learning into action. Right? Lilmod al minas lasos. Because Rabbi said, so just to be clear, is there a value in learning for learning's sake, even if it doesn't translate to action? Is there a value? Of course. Because Rabbi said the beauty of Torah is that Torah fundamentally changes us as people. I will say, there are plenty of things that we learn that we do not internalize. Right? And plenty of things that we learn that we do not allow to shape our behavior. We are often masters of cognitive dissonance. I have this whole body of knowledge, but I do not inculcate it into the way that I live. So at the end of the day, is that learning for not chas v'shalom? We'll say Talmud Torah learning is powerful even if it doesn't turn into something actional. Why? Because even if I don't transform it into actional dynamic activity, at the end of the day, it changes me as a person. That being said, the highest level of learning is learning which informs action. Learning, right? Lilmod amanas lasos. But I will say there's even a higher level of learning that translates into action, and that is teaching. When a person ultimately goes ahead and teaches Torah, so then I will say that's the highest level. That's the highest level. I will say that, just a word about this. And therefore, kind of bringing this full circle, what do they say about Chizkiyahu? What they said about Chizkiyahu Hanavi is not Chizkiyahu Melech. Not only did this one learn everything that was written in this one, not only did this one internalize or actionalize everything that was written in this one, but this one, Chizkiyahu, taught everything that was written in this. And the Torah. Remember, understanding Gemara Maseches Brachos. Again, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, we're going to be doing this Gemara tomorrow night at Am Yomi at 9 o'clock p.m. preceded by Marav at 8:50. If you're around, I will say, so Lamaisa, remember in the days of Chizkiyahu, everyone was conversant. The Gemara says even children were conversant in the laws of Tumah and Tara. I will say, you know what that means. Remember, how do you feel when we get to a Tumah and Tara sugya? Okay, you don't have to, right? And I was like, hey, well said, or well crafted, right? So I'll say, right? So in the days of Chizkiyahu, there was such scholarship in Torah that even children were versed in the laws of Tumah and Tara. Chizkiyahu was a Malamed. Chizkiyahu was a Rebbe. Chizkiyahu made sure that everyone learned Torah. So I'll say that was the greatest accolade, the greatest praise they give to Chizkiyahu. Not only did he learn, not only did he himself implement, but he taught. So the ability to say that one taught Torah, and I'll say just a word about this. People think that who are teachers of Torah? So those are Rebbeim. I'll say each and every one of us has the ability to be a teacher of Torah. Because you teach Torah, I'll say sometimes not just through what you say, but through how you live. If a person lives a life of Torah values, and ultimately other people see that, and they're like, wow, that's beautiful. The way that person lives is something special. Let's say a person is teaching. You could teach through spoken word, you could teach through deed. But the highest level in Yiddishkeit is the ability to teach Torah to others and to inspire others, hopefully to follow suit. The Gemara goes weiter. So that was the greatness of Chizkiyahu. Let's go back to Amr Rabbi Yochanan Mishra B'Shem Yochai. My disciples is beautiful. It's beautiful. My disciples, what's the meaning of the pasuk that says, Ashreichem Zore Al Kol Mayim Mishalchei Regal Hashar VaHachamar. So we'll say a very interesting pasuk here. So literally translated, Ashreichem, praiseworthy are you, Zore Al Kol Mayim, who literally sow upon the water, sow S-O-W, right? S-O-W, sow on the water. Mishalchei regal hashar v'achamar. Literally, again, send forth the feet of the shor, the ox, and the donkey. What is this passage talking about? The Moshe, listen to how beautiful. Get ready for this Gemara. Kala osek b'Torah u'gemilas chasadim. Now let's say anyone who engages in Torah, and I remember again, Torah means the learning of Torah, the living of Torah, the teaching of Torah, and gemilas chasadim, chasad, Zocha l'nachalas shnei shvatim. We'll be privileged ultimately again to have the portion of two shvatim. But I will say which two shvatim? The shar and the chamar. Which two shvatim are called the shar and the chamar? Shar is Yosef, chamar is Yisachar. Shnei amar ashreichem zorei ve'in zriya el tzedakah. Both say zriya sowing always refers to tzedakah. Shnei amar zaru lachem tzedakah the kesru lefi chased. Vein mayim. What's mayim? Mayim is Torah. Shnei amar hay kol samei l'chula mayim. So it's so beautiful. So therefore, the pasuk that says, right, Ashreichem, praiseworthy are you, Zorei al kol mayim. So the zriya, the sowing, that's reference to chesed. We'll say it's so beautiful. Chesed is compared to sowing. Why? Because we'll see you do an act of chesed for someone, and here's what's incredible, right? You sow a seed. And what happens after you sow the seed? What happens? What happens? Nothing. Right? Nothing. And then sometime later, what happens? Something sprouts forth in the ground. You do an act of chesed, and sometimes you do an act of chesed for someone, and the truth is, nothing happens immediately. Right? Nothing happens immediately. You just go ahead, you do the thing, and nothing occurs. Nothing occurs. And then I will say, sometime later on, what occurs? Something beautiful sprouts forth from it. That's chesed. That's the power of chesed, and we have so many beautiful opportunities to sow chesed within our midst, so many beautiful opportunities. I will say, now because of the current war in Eretz Yisrael, and here I will say, so many acts of chesed. And sometimes, sometimes it's kind of like we have like this aggrandized view of chesed. Like, I'm going to do a chesed, and like, something incredible is going to happen, right? Like, you want one of these stories that I did a chesed, and sometimes you do a chesed, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens now. But just understand, you've sown a seed, and that seed will absolutely unequivocally sprout sometime in the future. So that's chesed. Torah is water. I'll say why? Because again, at the end of the day, you can't survive without water. Who could survive without Torah? And I will say, like I say again, water, when you're thirsty and you have that cold drink of water, it's the best thing in the world. Sunday, every day, the soul is so thirsty. You give it a little bit of Torah, you quench that thirst. So that's the pasuk I will say. So the Gemara goes right to the Gemara says, Zochel l'nachal asnei shvatim, Zochel l'kila ki Yosef. So a person who engages in a life of Torah and Chesed, literally again gets covered like Yosef. Kislev ben paras Yosef benod sadal eishar, v'zochel l'nachal as Yisachar. Now I will say Yisachar, ultimately again, the pasuk says Yisachar chamar goram. Now interestingly enough, we often look at Yisachar simply as the shevet that learned, right? Zvulun went out to go ahead and do commerce in Yisachar. But Yisachar, Rashi also points out, also represents wealth. So therefore, again, the Chsiv Yisachar Chamagorim is the Amri Ayvav Nofel in front of Yosef. If one engages in Torah and stuck and Gemilas Chasadim, their enemies will fall before them like Yosef. The Chsiv Bahem Am Yiragach Yachdu Af Se'aretz Zochel Lebina Ki Yisachar. And one will acquire wisdom like Yisachar. D'chsev ubnei Yisachar yodei bina litim ladas mayase Yisrael. So I will say, there's a lot of ways of understanding this. It could also be that Yosef represents wealth and Yisachar represents understanding, right? So again, because Yosef, of course, was incredibly successful, Yosef also represents, again, like Pir V'Rivya, one becoming two. Because remember again, there's no Shevet Yosef, there's just two Shvatim of Menashe and Ephraim. I will say, but a beautiful, what's the takeaway? I will say, a successful Judaic life requires two things, Torah and Chesed. I will say, that is the well-balanced spiritual diet. Torah represents Ben Adam L'Makom, Chesed represents Ben Adam L'Chavera. Torah is how we build our relationship with Hashem, and Chesed is how we build our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Which I will say tells you, every single day, a person has to have a well-balanced spiritual diet. I have to know that every day I learn Torah, and every day I did Chesed. I will say, and again, that Chesed has to be there every single day, no different than Torah. A day, just like none of us would imagine, a day going by without Torah, a day can't go by without Chesed. I'll say, but what could I do if an opportunity doesn't present itself? There's always an opportunity. You could pick up the phone, you call someone who you know is struggling with something and say, just Shalom Aleichem, just wanted to say hello. That's Chesed. You see someone in shul who you don't recognize, you go over, you give a Shalom Aleichem. That's Chesed. You give tzedakah, that's Chesed. You go ahead, there's so many opportunities. I don't have to go through the entire list. But every single day needs Torah, and every single day needs Chesed. And Chazal assure us, if you have a life of ultimately Torah and Chesed each and every day, then you will get the brachas of Yosef and Yisachar. You will get the brachos of wealth, and you will get the brachos ultimately of greater understanding. Those are the two brachos you get. You live a life of Torah. Chesed Rabosai, Mazel Tov. Hadjir Arba. So we'll say Mazel Tov. Finished our first parak in Maseches Baba Kama. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Ketzar Regal Muada. So we'll say, let's get back to Baba Kama. All right. Ketzar, it was a nice little break. Some beautiful little agarata. So the Gemara says as follows. Ketzar Regal Muadas L'Shaber B'derech Hilucha. So let's listen to this. Remember, we're going back now to Regal. Now remember, what's Regal? We'll say Regal is an animal damaging in the course of activities of daily living. And remember, we'll say Regal is muad from the beginning, right? So nezek shani from the beginning. So again, the Gemara says Ketzar Regal Muadas. What's the case of Regal that's muad? An animal that causes damage in its normal course of activity, normal course of walking. An animal is considered to be muad, to go ahead and walk in its normal fashion and to break stuff. Now, I will say, those first two statements seem to be repetitive. We'll see what they mean in the Gemara. Now, I will say, now the Mishnah is introducing us to something else. Let's say the animal was kicking stuff around. Or, now I will say, now remember, kicking. What is kicking? What is kicking? Karen. Excellent. Kicking is Karen. What's the halacha by Karen? Chatzi nezek for a tam, nezek shalim for a muad. Or sroros. Now we'll say, what's sroros? Literally, again, the animal like kicks a pebble. So the animal is walking for a moment. The animal is walking, and what happens? It kicks a pebble. The pebble, right? The pebble is kicked up, and the pebble flies and breaks something else. That's called sroros. What's the halacha? V'shibra sakelim b'shalim chatzi nezek. So there's two things mentioned over it. So either keren tam, or sroros, kicking up a pebble, the pebble flying and damaging something, chatzi nezek. Darsa ala kli v'shabarto, if the animal tramples on a utensil and breaks it. V'nafal ala kli v'shibro. Now I will say, this is an interesting case. So imagine my ox is walking, it tramples a kli. Then a shard from that kli goes flying and breaks a second kli. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Kli number one is what? Kli number one? Kli number one? Kli number one? I feel like if I yell louder, you'll know the answer, right? Kli number one? Kli number one is Karen, right? I'm sorry, is Regal. Right, Kli number one is Regal. Okay, it's just that. So therefore it has a shalim. Kli number two? Sroros. Right, so here we go. Ala rishon mishalim nezek shalim. So you pay complete damages for the first kli, because that's regal. Remember again, the animal is trampling on it, just walking on it, that's called regal. Ala achra mishalim chatzi nezek. For the second kli, which is sroros, ultimately again chatzi nezek. What's the last case? Hatarnagolim mu'adin lahalech kedarkon u'lashaber. Chickens are considered to be mu'ad, to go ahead and damage in the normal course of walking. How do chickens damage stuff? So that's, again, normal case, chicken walking on stuff, we'll see that case. Hayad Dalil Kashabragna. It's an interesting case. Let's say the chicken had like a string or a rope tied to its foot. Now what happened? Or ultimately, let's say the chicken is, I was going to say prancing, but chickens don't prance. Hopping. Right? They hop, right? And as a result, they go ahead and break utensils. So we'll see about say that's chatzi nezek. Now we'll see exactly what that case is in the Gemara. Good, I will say, beautiful Mishnah. Gemara, I'm in days. I'm going to reveal the Rava. And I will say, now when you look at the opening statement of the Mishnah, it seems to be fundamentally repetitive, right? Because remember again, how does the Mishnah read? How is the regal muad to break something in the normal course, right? In the normal course of walking. So Rabbi says, so again, that halacha l'maisa, so that's talking about regal. Then it says, habahema muhedes lahalik kidarko l'shaber. An animal is muad to walk and to damage. So Rabbi said, those two statements seem to be fundamentally repetitive. So what's the pshat? It says the Imara. So hainu regal hainu behema arulei tana avos v'katani toldos. Oh, interesting Rabbi say. It could be that the first statement ultimately, remember, going back to the beginning of the Maseches, remember again, there's avos and there's toldos. For example, what's the av of regal? What's the av? What's the av? Just walking. Right? An animal is walking and it stamps on something, right? Just walks on something. That's called regal. What would be the tolda? So we'll say the tolda is any other. So the tolda would be, as we're going to see, an animal is carrying a pack, carrying a load, and the load damages something, right? Or the animal rubs his not rubs his body like for the sake of hana, but just rubs against the wall as it's walking. Those would be cases of toldos. So it could be that the two statements in the Mishnah, which seem to be saying the same thing, one is talking about avos and one is talking about toldos. El mi'ata. Here's the problem with that. El mi'ata seifa diktani hashem moedes. So we'll say, take a look at the next Mishnah. So we'll say the next Mishnah is you test some of the days. 19b, where this Mishnah spoke about regal, the next Mishnah is going to speak about shein. It says Hashem mu'edes, the shein is mu'ad, and habehema mu'edes. So my avos umay toldos ika. So by shein, what avos and what toldos do you have? So we'll say, listen to this. So this is Ravina speaking to Rava. So Rava says, so Rava responded with a little bit of a joke. I already answered one question. You know what, now it's your turn to answer a question. So we'll say, no, in the next Mishnah, which also has this redundancy, it's not redundant. One is to teach us the din of shein by a chaya, and one is to teach us the din of shein by a behema. Now both say, what's between a chaya and a behema? A chaya is a non-domesticated animal, a behema is a domesticated animal. So the Mishnah is going to teach me that the halacha, and I will say, remember again, what's shein? What's shein? What is shein? Damage done by an animal when? In the pursuit of hana, the pursuit of benefit. So therefore the redundancy, so to speak, is not a redundancy at all. One is to teach me that shein applies ultimately again to a chaya, non-domestic animal. One is to teach me that it applies to a behema. So the Gemara says, why do I need both? I would have thought, v'shilach es beira, ksib behema in chayalon. And I will say, lashon by shein is v'shilach es beira. I'm sending my animal, which indicates an animal that I have control over. What type of animal do I have control over? A behema and not a chaya. Kamash malon dechaya bechlal behema. So therefore, the double lashon of the next Mishnah teaches me that in fact chaya is included in behema. I will say if that's the case, then the halacha of behema should be written first and then chaya, right? Because behema is the halacha that's stated in the pasuk. Chaya is learned out by extrapolation. To which the Gemara says, no, Hy'd asli midrasha chavivle. The thing that Chazal learned out by a drasha, that's more near and dear, and therefore they go ahead and they put that first. Ihachi reisha nami listni ahid loksiv bereisha. If that's the case, then our Mishnah also. Why don't you begin with a discussion of toldos and then go ahead and discuss avos afterwards? To which the Gemara says, no. Hachiyash hasam idi v'idi avos ninu. Both say in the next Mishnah, both are avos. Both chaya and behema are both avos. And therefore, again, you could choose to put chaya before behema. Hach ta'asli midrasha chavivale. Hacha shavik avatani tolda. Both of it over here in our Mishnah, are you going to set aside the av and put the toldos first? That doesn't make any sense. The other possibility is Aidi Disalik Miregel Pasak Regel. The other possibility, since the previous Mishnah ended off the discussion of Regel, we begin over here by Regel as well. Fine. Tan Rabbanon. So therefore, again, Allah Chalamaysa, what we learn out is the two statements opening in the Mishnah, or the two opening statements of the Mishnah, which appear at first glance to be redundant, are not redundant at all. The first statement teaches me about the avos of Regel. The second statement teaches me about the toldos of Regel. Beautiful. Then I will say, watch this brisa, very important brisa. Tan Rabbanon. Very exciting. Very exciting. Behema mu'edes lahalech kedarko l'shadar. I will say, listen to this. A behema is muad to go on its way and to break stuff. It's on the Gemara as well say it's muad. It is normal for an animal in just its normal course of walking to damage stuff. Keitzad, what's the example of this? Behema shenichnusa l'chatzar nizak ve'ezika begufa. An animal walks into the property of the damaged party and what? Does damage ve'ezika begufa derech hilucha in its normal course of walking. So that would be a typical case, right? Animal walks in, right? My animal walks into Ruvain's chatzar and steps on a kli and smashes the kli. That's normal. Obesaira derech hiluka, or the hair, the mane of the animal, right? Flops. I don't know if I'm using the right animal terminology, right? But the mane flops around and damages something, right? Or bu'uk of shala, or with the saddle on it, or b'shlif shala, or the baggage that's on it, or b'prumbia shebepia, or with the bit in its mouth, or b'zug shebetzavara, or with the bell around its neck, the chamar b'maso, or if it's a donkey with the load on its back, b'shaling nezek shala. We'll say these are all considered to be. So in other words, an animal can end up damaging just in the normal course of walking with any of these items, and that's called normal. And therefore, again, we'll say it's called regel, and therefore, mishalim nezek shalim. Incredible. Then we'll say, now watch this. You thought it's been exciting until now. Watch. Here's where things heat up. Sumchus Omer. Sumchus comes along, and he says, Sroros, v'chazir shayinover ba'ashva. What does this? Sroros. Remember, what are Sroros? What are Sroros? Animals, typical case, Sroros, animals walking. In the course of walking, animal kicks up pebbles. A pebble goes flying, and what I was saying, and goes and smashes a kli. So we'll say, by the way, okay, we'll come back to it. Or chazir shayin nover ba'ashma, or a chazer, right, was going ahead and Nover ba'ashva is rooting in the trash. Good. Rooting in the trash, right? It's going through the trash, and we'll say what happens? The hizik, and it damages. Now, what is that case? We'll see in just a moment. We'll say Sumcha says in Sroros cases, full damages. Wow. So we'll see what that's at the root of this machlokes a little bit. Hizik, pshita. Obviously, if we're talking about a case where damage was done, so of course, again, we're going to be mechayim nezek shalim. Obviously. So the Gemara says, so rather, ela ema hitis v'hizik mishalim nezek shalim. Rather, what Sumchus means to say, is, if the chazer is rooting around in the trash and kicks up pebbles or whatever, something goes flying and then does damage, Sroros, Sumchus says nezek shalim. One second. Sroros mandikar shmail. Why bring up Sumchus? Why bring up Sroros? That wasn't the topic of the Brisa. The topic of the Brisa, I will say, was straight out cases of what? Regal damage. Talking about the animal doing damage with its feet, with its body, with its load, right, with the bell. So why bring up Tzoros? When it says, you're right, there was a piece missing, here's how you have to read it. Here you go, we'll say, Tzoros ski archayu chatzi nezek. But in general, we hold that Tzoros, a normative case of Tzoros. We'll say, what's a normative case of Tzoros? The animal's walking, right, doing whatever it's in its normal course, kicks up a pebble, the pebble goes flying, the pebble causes damage. So that pays chatzi nezek. Chazer, v'chazer shayidover ba'ashpa, or a chazer that was rooting around in the ashpa, in the garbage, v'hitis, and also kicks up a pebble, v'hizik, v'shalim chatzi nezek. Sumchus omer, sroros, v'chazer shayidover ba'ashpa, v'hitis, v'hizik, v'shalim chatzi nezek shalim. So we'll say, so what the Bryce is alerting us to, we'll say, is, there is a machlokes by sroros. Now, what that machlokes is, wait one more second, we're going to see it. But I will say, but there is a machlokes by Tzroros. Tanakama, Rabbanon hold. Tzroros is chatzi nezek, half damages. Sumchus hold is nezek shalim. What's going on over here? Here we go. Tan Rabbanon. We're not finished. Let's go a little bit more. Tan Rabbanon. I don't want to explain the machlokes just yet because the Gemara is going to do it. Tan Rabbanon. All right, fine. I'm going to do it right now. Listen to this. Let's say we're going to see that Tzroros is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Halacha Moshe Misinai, that Tzroros pay chatzi nezek. Even though Tzroros are really regal. It's really regal, but there's a halacha Moshe Misinai Sanaitic law that says Tzroros are chatzi nezek. Now, boss, here's what's incredible. Sumchus disagrees. Apparently, Sumchus had a different Mesorah, and he felt that at the end of the day, Tzroros are not halacha Moshe Misinai. And I will say, now the truth is, why would you say ultimately again that Tzroros are nezek shalim? Because l'maisa it's regal, it's just regal, right? So because it's regal, therefore regal is more from the beginning nezek shalim. So we're going to see, and it's really interesting because you don't see this too often, where there's a machlokes in a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. The Tanakama, everyone's saying that Tzroros is a halacha Moshe Misinai. And the halacha Moshe Misinai says that even though this is something that normally should be nezek shalim because it's ragal, halacha Moshe Misinai says it's chatzi nezek. Sumchas disagrees and he holds it is not halacha Moshe Misinai and therefore nezek shalim. Okay, good. We're going to see it explicitly later on, but I want to give it to you now. Tana Rabbanan, here we go. Great brisa. Tanagol shayim mafrichin mimakom lemakom. We'll say, right? So Tanagol, the chickens are mafrichin. Mafrichin literally means flying from one place to another, hopping from one place to another. The shibru kelim bekadver. There's incredible Musar Haskell on that also. So I want to point out, let's say, if a chicken has the ability to be mafriach, to hop from one place to another. In other words, a chicken has the ability to say what? I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move myself somewhere else. Chicken has the ability. And instantaneously a chicken could say, I'm moving. Let's say a chicken has the ability to do that. A chicken who doesn't have a neshama, chicken who does not have a bardas, if the chicken could move itself from one place to another just like that, Allah has kama v'kama will say, if we make the choice to move ourselves from one point to another, I no longer want to be in this spot in life. I no longer want to be this kind of guy. I no longer want to be in this particular situation. I could choose to move myself as well. If a chicken literally could be mafriach, mimakum lemakum, then Allah has kama v'kama, I, who has das, I, who has a neshama, have the ability to move myself in life as well? Such a musraska. Shibru came b'kanfeim. I would say, as the chicken is moving itself, what does it do? It goes ahead and it knocks over or smashes utensils with its wings. Nezek shalim. Then I will say that's full nezek, right? That's full nezek. Because again, I will say, what is that? What is that? That's regal. It's regal. However, watch this. Beruach shebekanfein. What happens, I will say, is when the chicken is moving itself from one place to another, it starts flying. It's hopping, so it moves its wings. And the airflow from the wings knocks over a utensil and breaks it. So the chicken never has direct contact with the wings, but the air generated from the flapping of the wings ultimately again breaks the utensils. Then I will say, what is that? I will say, why? What is that? What is that? That's called sroros. That's called sroros. It's not a tolda. Why is it a tolda? Because there's no direct contact between the animal and the kli. Remember, I will say, the whole chap of sroros is that the animal itself is not doing the damage, but rather the animal has generated a force which results in damage. Whether that force is a pebble or whether that force is air. So I will say, so now we're getting a different definition. So there is regel is when the animal damages in the normal course of action, the animal damages directly. Sroros will be any case of what we call koach gufo. So there's a koach that comes from the body of the animal, but it's not the body of the animal itself that does the damage. Incredible. So it could be the wind of the wings, or it could be a pebble that it picks up. So chatzi nezek, that's called sroros. We'll say first one line, sumchas omer nezek shalim. Sumchas says, complete nezek shalim. So thank you, the brayso. Tanagol shayim had sin agabe isa agabe peros tinfu o nikru. So let's say a chicken is hopping on top of a dough or on top of peros. And you know what happens when chickens hop on stuff. We all know what happens, right? They soil the dough or they soil the fruit. What's the halacha? Or nikru, they make holes in it. What's the halacha? So what's I? Regal. That's called regal. Helu afar otsroros. If the chickens, when they're hopping around, kick up dirt or kick up tsoros, then what's the halacha? They pay chatzi nezek. Sumchas over sumchas says nezek shalim, complete nezek. Tiny yidach another brayso. Tarna go shayim mafriach mimakom l'makom. A chicken is hopping from one place to another, and as it's flapping its wings, it generates wind, and the wind causes the utensil to break. Ultimately, again, chatzi nezek. Why did I both say why? Why? What is that called? Sroros. So the Gemara says, okay, stamar rabbanon, amar Rava, bishlama sumchos kasara koach gufo ki gufo. Here's what's interesting. At first, Rava assumes that why does sumchos hold that you pay nezek shalim in a case of sroros? Because sumchos holds that any force generated by the body of the animal is as if the body of the animal is doing direct damage as well. So there's no difference of doing damage directly with the body of the animal or a force generated by the body of the animal. Ella Rabbanon iki gufo dami kuli nezek by the shalim. But Rabbanon, what do you hold? If you hold that force generated by the body of the animal is like the body of the animal itself, you should pay nezek shalim. V'ilav ki gufo dami chazi nezek. Nami loshan. And if force generated by the body is not like the body, then you shouldn't have to pay anything. So I'll say here it is. What's unfolding over here? So I'll say what's unfolding over here? What's unfolding over here? Everyone agrees. This is very important disorder. Everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa. So the halacha is that koach gufo ki gufo dami. That ultimately a force generated by the body of the animal is what? Just like the body of the animal itself. If that's the case, then why is sroros chatzi nezek? And the answer is halacha l'moshe misinai. So the Rabbanon hold, again, you have this halacha l'moshe misinai, this Sinaitic law, that says that even though sroros should really be the equivalent of damage done with the body of the animal itself, and I will say, even though when the animal does damage with the body itself, what do we call that? When the animal does damage with its body in the normal course of activities of daily living, what do we call that? Regal. And the din of regal is nezek shalim. There's a halacha l'moshe misinai that says you only pay chatzi nezek. And amazingly enough, Simcha says, no such thing. No such thing. There's no such thing ultimately again as a halacha l'moshe misinai of chatzi nezek by tzros. So what the sefer turns out, it's a machlokes. It's a machlokes in Mesorah. It's literally machlokes in Mesorah. So Simcha says no such animal. Literally. There's no such halacha l'Moshe Sinai of tzoros, and therefore again, since everyone agrees that koach gufo kagufo dami, therefore again the halacha of tzoros is nezek shalim, and the Rabbanan all know that halacha l'maisa is going to be chatzi nezek. I will say, let me just use the last 2 minutes we have just to go back. Just I want to tell you just this piece. We're not time on Friday. So the Gemara said, the Gemara said by the dog, right? No one forgets this. Rabbi Nosson says, minayin, again, minayin shlo yegadol adam kelev ra besoch beiso. Alright, so we'll say something. So literally translate, how do you know that a person should not raise a bad dog in his home? So in Pashtus, what Chazal are telling us is that halacha l'maisa, do not raise a damaging force in your home. So as I've quoted to you a number of times in the past, the Maggid of Mezrich has a beautiful idea in the pasuk in Bayitzias Mitzrayim. The pasuk says, "Ulechol b'nei Yisrael lo yecharatz kelev l'shono." Lo yecharatz kelev l'shono. When Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, ultimately again the pasuk says that the dog won't even wag its tail. Right? In other words, or wag its tongue. So the Maggid says something beautiful. The Maggid says, "Ulechol b'nei Yisrael." What does it mean to be a Jew? Lo yecharatz. We'll say what's a charitz? A charitz is a furrow. Lo yecharatz, so kelev l'shono, he says kelev l'shono. Kelev l'shono. I'll say the whole yesod in Yiddishkeit is that there has to be a perfect equilibrium between ultimately, again, my heart and my lashon. In other words, and it's not just my lashon, and a lot of times in life, we feel a certain way, we believe a certain way, but those beliefs don't necessarily express themselves in the way we talk, in the way we act. There's a charetz, there's a furrow between my heart and between my tongue. So there's a furrow between the way I believe and the way that I express myself. There has to be symmetry for a yid. Right? Not kelev l'shono, kelev l'shono. So what's it? You see that any time you see the word kelev, anyway, you see the word kelev, you have a little bit of homiletic license to also read it as kelev. So we'll say, what are Chazal telling us? This is incredible. Rabbi Nosson says, minayin shelo gadol adam, not kelev ra besoch beiso, but kelev ra besoch beiso. I will say, a person has to make sure not to go ahead and raise a negative heart within his home. I will say, what does it mean? That a person sometimes, it's the natural default to bear animosity. It's the natural default to bear grudges. It's the natural default to harbor ill will towards others. It's just the way that for whatever the reason, Chosh Baruch Hu programmed us. And I will say, we can see especially now, like we're living in times of such unprecedented achdus. I really think, I'm not a historian, but I think like literally since the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, to feel such a sense of unity in Klal Yisrael. Then what happens? Someone does something I don't like. Someone says something I don't like. And it's so easy, like we jump, we pounce, we go, and we're willing to go ahead and like throw away the entire beautiful lave. Because someone did or said, it's again, the Gemara says, Rabbi Nosson says, Minayin shlo yigadol adam kelev ra b'soch beiso. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't raise a leiv ra in your home. Whatever you do, Abba said, whatever you do, foster that positivity, foster that unity, and you have to work on it, because the lashon over here is yigadol. Abba said, what does it mean yigadol? What does the word yigadol mean? What does it mean yigadol? Like raise. However, what's the hardest thing in life? What is the hardest thing in life? Hands on the hardest thing in life? Raising inspired children. It is a constant avoda. And then you think, you know what we all think very quickly. You know what we all think. Okay, all I need to do is get them to the chuppah, and then they're fine. And then you realize, oh my God, I was so wrong. Right? Then there's a whole new avoda of parenting that becomes. Right? Again, once they get to the chuppah. And then again, well, okay, at least when they have children of their own, then they're going to be funny. Oh no, a whole new thing that happens over here. Again, the raising of children is a constant and perpetual occupation. The only thing that is as perpetual of an avodah as raising children is raising your leiv. See, raising your leiv, every single day I have to nurture that heart. Every single day I have to nurture those feelings. Again, there's a tsar gidol leiv. It's so easy for that leiv to turn ra. It's so easy for that leiv to turn negative and to foster negative feelings or ill will towards my fellow Jew. Rabbi Nosson says, Minayin shelo yigadol adam kilev ra b'soch beiso. Don't do it. Whatever you do, make sure that the heart that you're raising inside your home, the heart that you're raising inside yourself, is only filled with positivity, only filled with good, and only filled with boundless Avas Yisrael. All right, Stop over here. Incredible Gemara.